Shakespeare is a genius of the English language above all else. Therefore, it would be only fair that we begin by reading that part where he is in audience with his daughters and where he asks them to provide verbal evidence for their affection towards him. Please go ahead.
Meantime, we shall express our darker purpose. Give me the map there. Know that we are divided in three our kingdom, and it's our fast intent to shake all cares and business from our age, conferring them on younger strings, while we, unburdened, crawl toward death. Our son of Cornwall, and you, our no less loving son of Albany, we have this hour a constant will to publish our daughters several dovers, that future strife may be prevented now. The princes, France and Burgundy, great rivals in our youngest daughter's love, long in our court have made their amorous sojourn, and here are to be answered. Tell me, my daughters, since now we'll divest us both of rule, interest of territory, cares of state, which of you shall we say doth love us most, that we our largest bounty may extend where nature doth with merit challenge? Goneril, our eldest born, speak first.
Sir, I love you more than word can wield the matter, dearer than eyesight, space and liberty, beyond what can be valued, rich or rare. No less than life, with grace, health, beauty, honor, as much as child ever loved or father found, a love that make breath poor and speech unable, beyond all manner of so much I love you.
What shall Cordelia speak? Love and be silent.
Of all these bounds, even from this line to this, with shadowy forests and with champaigns rich with plenteous rivers and wide-skirted meads, we make thee lady. To thine and Albany's issues be this perpetual. What says our second daughter, our dearest Regan, wife of Cornwall?
I am made of that self-metal as my sister, and prize me at her worth. In my true heart I find she names my very deed of love. Only she comes too short, that I profess myself an enemy to all other joys, which the most precious squire of sense possesses, and find I am alone felicitate in your dear highness's love.
Then poor Cordelia, and yet not so, since I am sure my love's more ponderous than my tongue.
To thee and thine hereditary ever remain this ample third of our fair kingdom, no less in space, validity, and pleasure than that conferred on Goneril. Now our joy, although our last and least, to whose young love the wines of France and milk of Burgundy strive to be interest. What can you say to draw a third more opulent than your sisters? Speak.
Nothing, my lord.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing will come of nothing. Speak again.
Unhappy that I am, I cannot heave my heart into my mouth. I love your majesty according to my bound, no more nor less.
How, Cordelia? Mend your speech a little, lest you may mar your fortunes.
Good, my lord, you have begot me, bred me, loved me. I return those duties back as are right fit, obey you, love you, and most honor you. Why have my sisters husbands, if they say they love you all? Happily, when I shall wed, that lord whose hand must take my plight shall carry half my love with him, half my care and duty. Sure, I shall never marry like my sisters.
But goes thy heart with this?
Ay, my good lord.
So young and so untender?
So young, my lord, and so true.
Let it be so. Thy truth then be thy dower. For by the sacred radiance of the sun, the mysteries of Hecate and the night, by all the operation of the orbs, from whom we do exist and cease to be. Here I disclaim all my paternal care, propinquity, and property of blood, and as a stranger to my heart and me, hold thee from this forever. The barbarous Scythian, or he that makes his generation messes to gorge his appetite, shall to my bosom be as well neighboured, pitied, and relieved as though my sometime daughter.
Look, when she says, I love you more than word can wield the matter, that there is no word into which the matter can be put, and that much I love you is what Goneril is telling her father. So in a way, even her words are an attempt to say that her love transcends language. Dearer than eyesight, space and liberty, beyond what can be valued rich or rare, no less than life with grace, health, beauty, honor, as much as child ever loved or father found. So she, even Goneril is attempting to express the inexpressible, but the only thing here is it's not real. So in that sense, she's acting in bad faith. She's not being truthful to that extent. So the words are there, the expression is there, the expression is rich and natural, but it does not reflect the real person. How would you see it, Radhika? What do you think of it?
I think this shows her height of hypocrisy and double standards, where she uses the saying that word can, more than world can, the word can wield the matter, and she uses words to express her feeling. Whereas Cordelia, she actually feels the feeling, and she actually feels that her words cannot express what she feels. Whereas Goneril shows her heights of double standards by saying that words cannot express her love. At the same time, she uses words to express her love, which shows her height of
That's a good observation,
double standards.
because when Lear comes to realize that, he compares the ingratitude of a child to a serpent's tooth. He means to say it is that painful for a father to suffer the ingratitude, for a parent to suffer the ingratitude of children. So when a child is ungrateful, it brings infinite pain to the parent. Why is Lear pained by the ingratitude? Why is it so painful to him as a father when the child is ungrateful? Why is it painful? Why is any ingratitude painful?
So naturally, all parents expect their children to be faithful and loving towards them. So since King Lear was insecure, he doubted that if his children would look after him in his old age. So he just wanted to make sure how much they loved him, if there was any chance of him getting any protection in his old age. So that was why he kept asking the girls about that. And considering the decision made by Regan and Goneril, from a materialistic point of view, what they did is right. They wanted the property, they wanted to live successfully, so they just flattered the father. But we could have supported them if only they had looked after the father in his old age. When he became old, when he became senile, they completely discarded him like a piece of rag. So if that had not happened, we could have supported. We can say that they were more sensible and more, sensitive to their father's feeling. So that's what I feel about the matter.
So old age is a central issue in the play,
Yeah.
more than any other theme, because it's a study of old age. Lear's character is actually a study of old age, and Lear going mad gradually when he realizes that the love that he believed was real is not real anymore. I mean, the coming of his madness and his grief and his anguish and his pain do reflect something about aging, which is true of all of us. So, is Lear just an old man who has become a child in his madness? Or is he still conscious of himself as a person? How would you see it? In what is Shakespeare's commentary on old age?
So Shakespeare himself has said like old age is second childhood. So just as a child needs looking after every now and then, it's the same with old people. So King Lear cherishes that affection. He wants people to love him, to see what he needs, to come when he calls. All these he wants that. He longs for them. And he wants to get that affection from his daughters. And both his daughters, whom he thought loved him, turns him down. So when he is not getting that care and affection, that leads him into a mental state of frenzy and he becomes mad. I think this is the connection between old age and madness. When people they don't find that love and care from the persons whom they expected, they can be driven to madness.
So, you think that Lear is not really obsessed with power. On the contrary, what he wants is just human affection.
Yes. If he were obsessed with power, he would have never divided the kingdom for his three daughters. He would have went on ruling, but he divides the kingdom for his three daughters. So he is not at all obsessed with power.
So it's not about power.
He craves for love.
He craves for human affection, for the love of his children,
Yes.
which would be natural for any parent. So in that sense, he is a very human
Yes.
character. But I mean, is old age as simple as that? I mean, don't you think that old people are complex and their motives are also complex? So just as, I mean, given the image of second childhood that you pointed out, just as we cannot satisfy children, do you think it's possible to satisfy old people? Don't forget, King Lear is a man, he's a difficult person. He's not a man who is happy very easily, which is why Cordelia has these problems in trying to convince him that she loves him.
Cordelia is said to be the favorite of his daughters. So when Cordelia tells him that when King Lear is not getting what he expected from Cordelia, he gets his first blow which adds up as a major factor to his madness of him going frenzy in his old age. So I think the affection, all he wanted was affection in his old age, which he did not get from Regan and Goneril, who said to love him. But at the end of the day, if he gets affection, that's only from Cordelia, and then the fool. The fool is the one who tells him how he's wrong, directs him to how Cordelia, the act of Cordelia, the feeling of Cordelia towards him.
Very true. In some sense, the fool is the real hero of the play. Because the fool is like Lear's other self. He's constantly watching Lear and he's making fun of Lear relentlessly. He mocks him. He tells him, "You're an idiot, you're a fool, you're a real old fool to believe in Goneril and Regan." And unconsciously or subconsciously, Lear is aware of that. Lear is aware of his folly. So what is the importance of the fool in Shakespeare?
He is at times the actual hero in Shakespeare's work, especially in King Lear. He is the one who brings King Lear to notice the follies that he commits. So at times we doubt if more than King Lear, he is the real hero in the play. He is the real conscience of the playwright as a whole. And I think he makes King Lear realize his follies and perhaps make him go in the right path. And
In a gentle way.
in a gentle way, yeah.
And also he may be the conscience of Shakespeare himself.
Yeah.
I'd like to draw a comparison between this, the fool, and a similar character that I had noticed in the movie Dilli Chair that we had watched. A man who goes around with a mirror in his hand. He's said to be crazy in the movie, but in the end, he turns out to be that he's the one who's showing people their actual face in the mirror. So
Very true.
yeah, that's he just reminded me of the character in Dilli Chair, and a similar the fool is a similar character here who shows the people their actual image in the mirror.
Very true.
So that's
Exactly.
what I
The fool is a mirror, kind of a mirror.
a mirror
Yeah,
sort of a
that is
thing
true.
where he shows the people their actual image.
Correct. And the fool understands that more than anyone else. And like in the comparison you made, constantly a mirror is being showed to the other characters in the play, especially King Lear in this case.
So I would like to ask whether the fool is the physical conscience of King Lear. Is it the physical like what Shakespeare trying to bring out the inner conscience of King Lear through the fool? Is he the physical conscience of King Lear?
More than King Lear himself, don't forget there is also an audience or there is a reader. And in some way, the fool is making us think what is real and what is not real. Is King Lear's suffering real? Is Cordelia's behavior natural? Are Regan and Goneril really villains? Do they have no humanity? Why is Edmund the way he is? Why is he cruel? Why is he such a cruel man? How can he betray his own father? How can he treat his brother so badly? So in that sense, the fool is also the conscience, physical conscience or physical embodiment or moral embodiment of the audience, the reader, the playwright, as Minu pointed out, and also Shakespeare and also King Lear himself and the other characters too. Because if the problem also is that we take our roles too seriously. King Lear takes his role as a king and a father too seriously. Cordelia takes her role as a daughter too seriously. Goneril and Regan take their roles as hypocrites too seriously. And so does Edmund, so does Edgar, so does Gloucester, so does Kent, every other character. But what is behind that seriousness is what Shakespeare puts into the mouth of King Lear. Nothing will come out of nothing. It is nothing really. Nothingness is the theme that binds the play. I mean, this is something we are familiar even in the Upanishads. The Upanishads speak of a sense of nothingness. So at the heart of a human being, actually a person is nothing. So this sense of nothingness that we see in the Upanishads, an aspect, a small aspect of it is reflected in Shakespeare as well. That all our desires, all our ambitions, all our dreams are merely illusions at the end of the day. And that is something which the 20th century writer, Latin American writer, Borges reflects in a short parable, Everything and Nothing. And I would like you to read it as a summary to this, as a conclusion to this great play by Shakespeare.
Everything and nothing. There was no one inside him, nothing but the trace of chill, a dream dreamt by no one else behind the face that looks like no other face, even in the bad paintings of the period, and the abundant, whimsical, impassioned words. He started out assuming that everyone was just like him, the puzzlement of a friend to whom he had confided a little of his emptiness revealed his error and left him with a lasting impression that the individual should not diverge from the species. At one time, he thought he could find a cure for his ailments in books, and accordingly learned the small Latin and less Greek, to which a contemporary later referred. He next decided that what he was looking for might be found in the practice of one of humanity's more elemental rituals. He allowed Anne Hathaway to initiate him over the course of a long June afternoon.
In his 20s, he went to London. He had become instinctively adept at pretending to be somebody so that no one would suspect he was in fact nobody. In London, he discovered the profession for which he was destined, that of the actor who stands on a stage and pretends to be someone else in front of a group of people who pretend to take him for that other person. Theatrical work brought him a rare happiness, possibly the first he had ever known. But when the last line had been applauded and the last corpse removed from the stage, the odious shadow of unreality fell over him again. He ceased being Ferex or Tamburlaine and went back to being nobody. Hard pressed, he took to making up other heroes, other tragic tales. While his body fulfilled its bodily destiny in the taverns and brothels of London, the soul inside it belonged to Caesar, who paid no heed to the oracle's warnings, and Juliet, who hated skylarks, and Macbeth in conversation on the head with witches who are also the Fates.
No one was as many men as this man. Like the Egyptian Proteus, he used up the forms of all creatures. Every now and then he would tuck a confession into some hidden corner of his work, certain that no one would spot it. Richard states that he plays many roles in one, and Iago makes the odd claim, I am not what I am. The fundamental identity of existing, dreaming, and acting inspired him to write famous lines. For 20 years he kept up this controlled delirium. Then one morning he was overcome by the tedium and horror of being all those kings who died by the sword and all those thwarted lovers who came together and broke apart and melodiously suffered. That very day he decided to sell his troupe. Before the week was out, he had returned to his hometown. There he reclaimed the trees and the river of his youth without trying them to the other selves that his muse had sung, decked out in mythological allusion and Latinate words. He had to be somebody, and so he became a retired impresario who dabbed in money lending, lawsuits, and petty usury. It was as this character that he wrote the rather dry last will and testament with which we are familiar, having purposefully expunged from it every trace of emotion and every literary flourish. When friends visited him from London, he went back to playing the role of the poet for their benefit.
The story goes that shortly before or after his death, when he found himself in the presence of God, he said, I, who have been so many men in vain, want to be one man only, myself. The voice of God answered him out of a whirlwind. Neither am I what I am. I dreamed the world the way you dreamt your plays, dear Shakespeare. You are one of the shapes of my dreams. Like me, you are everything and nothing.
So that summarizes what reading Shakespeare is all about. I mean, look at this particular line where Borges says, the fundamental identity of existing, dreaming, and acting inspired him to write famous lines. Dreaming, existing, acting. These three things are the three aspects or the three dimensions that somehow define Shakespeare. On the one hand, being a creative writer, he is a dreamer, and the existence of Shakespeare, or who we call Shakespeare, is through his characters. He lives in his characters. So he's Lear, he's Edmund, he's Gloucester, he's the fool, he's the beggar, he's Othello, he's Hamlet, he's Macbeth, he's Romeo, he's Juliet. He's all these countless characters that he created. He exists through them. But he is also an actor. Who is the real Shakespeare? Look at the line that Iago says from Othello, I am not what I am. So who are you? And that is the point that he makes, that Shakespeare himself makes in this parable before God. I who have been so many men in vain want to be one man, only myself. He says, I have been all these countless characters, but I want to be myself. I want to be a real person. But then the voice of God answered him out of a whirlwind, neither am I what I am. Just as you created all these characters, this unending stream of characters, this ocean of characters, similarly, I am also nothing like you. That's what God is himself telling Shakespeare. I dreamed the world the way you dreamt your plays, dear Shakespeare. You are one of the shapes of my dreams. I created you in my imagination. That's what God is telling Shakespeare. Like me, you are everything and nothing. Thank you very much.